Fluffy was a cat the color of marmalade. She lived in a quiet house, filled with soft chairs and sunny spots perfect for napping. Her days were a gentle rhythm of sleep, soft purrs, and the comforting presence of her person. But sometimes a bit of wildness stirred in Fluffy's heart, a whisper of the world beyond her home. One morning the sun rose with a particularly golden light. It streamed through the kitchen window, painting long, inviting stripes across the floor. Fluffy watched, her green eyes wide. Her person was busy making breakfast, the back door open just a crack. A gentle breeze, smelling of damp earth and new flowers, drifted in. It called to something deep inside her, a curiosity she could not ignore. She padded softly, her orange fur glowing in the morning light. The gap in the door was small, just a sliver of darkness, leading to a world of bright green and blue. With a final silent glance, Fluffy made her choice. She squeezed through the narrow opening, and with a soft click, the door swung shut behind her. Fluffy was outside. The world outside was a symphony of new sensations. The grass beneath Fluffy's paws was cool and damp with morning dew. Birds sang songs she had only heard faintly through the window, now loud and clear. The air was thick with the smell of blooming flowers and freshly cut grass. It was overwhelming, a rush of information that made her whiskers tremble with excitement and a little fear. Fluffy took a tentative step, then another. Her initial fear began to mix with enormous curiosity. Everything was so big, so open. The sky above was a vast expanse of blue, much larger than any ceiling she had ever known. She crept along the side of her house, staying close to the familiar brick walls. Each new sight, each new sound was an adventure. The initial shock of being outside began to fade, replaced by a growing sense of wonder. The fear was still there, but the curiosity was a bigger, brighter thing urging her forward. As Fluffy ventured further, her senses picked up a faint sound. It was a tiny, distressed mewling, almost lost in the chirping of sparrows. Her ears swiveled, trying to pinpoint the source. She followed the sound, her movements slow and careful, down a narrow path between two tall hedges. There, huddled beneath a large rhododendron bush, was a tiny, shivering kitten. It was grey and white, its fur matted and its eyes wide with fear and hunger. Fluffy approached slowly, making soft, rumbling purrs deep in her chest. The little kitten flinched at first, but Fluffy's gentle demeanor seemed to calm it. She lay down a short distance away, showing she meant no harm. After a few moments, the tiny creature took a hesitant step towards her, then another. Fluffy remained still, her purr a steady, comforting vibration. The kitten finally reached her and nuzzled weakly against her warm orange fur. Fluffy began to lick its matted fur gently, cleaning and soothing it. Fluffy continued her journey through the neighborhood. The sun was warm on her back, and the initial fear had mostly given way to a quiet sense of purpose. She wasn't just exploring anymore, she was listening, watching, her senses attuned to the subtle signs of distress. Later that afternoon, she heard a distressed yelping from behind a tall wooden fence. Fluffy found a small gap at the bottom of the fence and squeezed through. In the backyard, a small fluffy white dog, a little Westie, was caught. Its leash was tangled around the leg of a heavy garden table. Fluffy approached cautiously. The dog, seeing a cat, barked weakly, a mixture of fear and frustration. But Fluffy didn't hiss or run. She sat down calmly a few feet away and looked at the tangled leash. She then looked at the dog, blinking slowly. Her calm presence seemed to have a soothing effect. The dog's frantic struggles lessened. As the afternoon sun began to dip lower, Fluffy felt a different kind of pull. It wasn't a cry of distress from an animal, but a quiet sense of loneliness from one of the houses she passed. Drawn by this unseen feeling, Fluffy hopped onto the low garden wall and then onto a wide windowsill. The window was slightly ajar, and she could hear the faint sound of a television playing inside. Inside, an elderly woman sat alone in an armchair, her gaze distant. Fluffy watched her for a long time. The woman sighed softly, a sound that seemed to carry a weight of sadness. Fluffy felt an urge to comfort her. She couldn't go inside, but perhaps her presence could offer something. Fluffy settled down on the windowsill, her orange fur a warm splash of color against the fading light. She began to purr, a soft, rhythmic sound that vibrated through the wooden frame of the window. She simply sat there, a silent, furry sentinel watching over the quiet room. After a while, the elderly woman slowly turned her head and saw Fluffy on the windowsill. Her eyes, which had looked so sad, softened a little. A small, hesitant smile touched her lips. The encounter at the window left Fluffy with a new understanding. She could help not just animals, but people too, in her own quiet way. As dusk began to settle, she continued her silent rounds. She was drawn to another house, this one with a soft light glowing in an upstairs window. She heard the faint sound of coughing and a child's fretful whimper. Her heart, now so attuned to sadness, led her paws towards the source. She climbed a sturdy trellis covered in ivy until she reached the sill of the upstairs window. Peeking inside, she saw a little boy tucked into bed, his face pale and his breathing a little raspy. His mother sat beside him, stroking his forehead, her own face etched with worry. Fluffy settled on the outer ledge, just visible in the dim light from the room. She began her soft, rumbling purr, a sound of deep contentment and peace. The little boy, stirring restlessly, turned his head towards the window. Word began to spread through the neighborhood. People spoke of a beautiful orange cat, a gentle creature that seemed to appear when needed most. The little girl whose kitten Fluffy had comforted told her friends about the kind orange cat who had stayed with Patches. The elderly man whose dog, Snowy, had been tangled, described the calm intelligence of the feline that had helped free him. The elderly woman who had seen Fluffy on her windowsill told her visiting nurse about the lovely cat whose presence had eased her loneliness. The mother of the sick little boy shared the story of the purring visitor who had brought a moment of peace to their difficult night. Each story was a little different, yet they all painted a picture of a remarkable, compassionate animal. No one knew where the orange cat came from or where it went. It seemed to be a wanderer, a free spirit with a heart full of kindness. Some started calling her the angel cat, a guardian in fur. Children would look for her, hoping for a glimpse of the beautiful orange feline. Adults would leave out small bowls of water or food on their porches just in case the angel cat passed by. Fluffy, unaware of the gentle legend growing around her, continued her quiet work. Days turned into nights, and then another day dawned, bright and clear. Fluffy had helped many, had brought comfort to creatures great and small, and to people young and old. She had learned so much about the world outside her familiar walls. But now a different feeling began to stir within her. It was a gentle ache, a longing for something known, something deeply comforting. It was the thought of her own soft bed, the specific scent of her home, and the loving touch of her person. She had wandered far, exploring new streets and unfamiliar gardens, but now the memory of her person's face, their gentle voice calling her name, grew stronger and stronger. The adventure had been grand, but the call of home was undeniable. As the sun began its slow descent, Fluffy turned her paws in a new direction. She didn't know the exact way back by sight, but an inner sense guided her. She followed the slant of the sunlight, the familiar smells that grew stronger as she neared her own street. Fluffy reached her own front porch. She sat by the door that had clicked shut behind her what felt like a lifetime ago. She let out a soft meow, then a louder one. She could hear movement inside, a familiar pattern of footsteps. The door opened, and there stood her person. Tears were streaming down their face, their eyes wide with a mixture of disbelief and overwhelming joy. "Fluffy! Oh, Fluffy! You're home!" they cried, their voice thick with emotion. They knelt down and gently scooped her into their arms. The reunion was everything Fluffy had longed for. She purred louder than she ever had before, nuzzling against her person's tear-streaked cheek. She was home. She was safe. She was loved. Her person held her close, whispering words of relief and affection, checking her over for any sign of injury, stroking her soft orange fur.